Hello there. My name is Brandon Everett, and this afternoon I am with my wonderful friend Little Fawn.
Hello.
Just to do a quick recap, reintroduction. I've been a friend of Little Fawn's for a good long while now, and with these videos in these sessions, we're trying to communicate this unique wisdom that Little Fawn has figured out that they're able to tune into. Um, I think that the knowledge and the wisdom that comes through really has profound implications for how an individual can kind of see themselves, begin to maybe relate with their own life differently. And then, of course, that has implications for how we as a collective live and operate. In my role, I'm here almost just as much as you are as a spectator, um, and and in the role of facilitator. So just kind of playing both roles at once. Um, Little Fawn and I were having a short conversation before this all started, but I want to give you a chance. Is there anything you want to say before we get started this
So
afternoon?
much and
There's so
nothing
much
at all.
there's so much you could say. How about if no one has ever met you before, what's the elevator stump speech?
The elevator stump speech is, "Hi, I'm Little Fawn. I exist on this floating rock in space, and I work or have learned to work inside frequency, which started out from just being drawn to music. So, starting first as a musician and a singer and then a songwriter, and you don't realize it, but when you're writing songs, you're channeling, you're pulling through story that sometimes comes from your experience here, but then I would have experiences of writing things that, why'd you write that?
Definitely did not come from here.
I don't know. Just, it's on the page now, so I made it a little ditty. Um, and even singing, I think Cyndi Lauper has a great quote about singing being an otherworldly experience. It's like you plant your feet down and you just anchor in and you open your mouth and you just kind of like, you inhale and you exhale, and it's like the intention of the song and the tone and the frequency is so powerful that it's like it takes you somewhere else. So so that's how it started, and where it is currently is me actually channeling and doing frequency healing work and helping others to be empowered to kind of take that into their own hands. Not so much it's saying, hey, do this, this is the way, or kind of like, hey, this is what I've experienced, I think it'll help you, feel free to expand on it, change it, turn it upside down.
So one thing Jenny and I were talking about today was how much as practitioners we've come to recognize that like there can be direction that when you're working with somebody, but once you've kind of like tapped into the essence of what a practice is trying to communicate to you, that within that there's a whole lot of space for really personalizing the experience and personalizing the practice so that it becomes truly transformative to you. You actually can't take somebody else's meditation practice. You can't do somebody else's, light language practice or their frequency practice. You cannot take another person's practice. It has to be your own on some level. But I think one thing to point out too is where you help people is in finding that, in recognizing like what does it mean? What does it mean to tap into frequency, and then the impact that has, and then how do you bring that into your daily life?
Well, I actually told somebody who asked me like a while ago, I'm having trouble with, I forget, I think she was having trouble going to a place where like, I go to this place and I love walking here or whatever, but then I like bad things happen, like weird, like just weird physical symptoms or whatever. And I said, well, what if you had a magic wand? What would you do if you knew it worked? Like, what would you kind of, okay, also maybe not go to that spot anymore, but like
find a new
maybe
spot.
There's lots of pretty spots, but also like if you had the magic wand, what would you do? Do that. The worst thing that will happen is nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that just means that you don't fully believe in your own power as somebody who can affect a positive change in that way, in the unseen, quantum frequency driven planes, as opposed to like tangible, like, hi, I'm going to put lipstick on and now my lips are a different color and it's tangible and I can feel it and I can see it. Like, this is subtle. They're subtle body realms. So it's like sometimes it's hard to trust it in the beginning. But basically, it's like I give you your magic wand and I tell you it's real.
Yeah.
And then it's up to you what you do with it.
And then from there, life changes to the extent that you can kind of work with and continue to hone and practice it.
Yeah.
So another conversation that Jenny and I were having, or Little Fawn and I were having before we started. You can call me
Jenny because you're you.
I'm going to get better at that. I'm going to work on that. We were talking about kind of, and I think this is so impactful in making these videos and recording these sessions. You kind of want to get to, what is the essence of what we're going for here? What is going to be the most impactful for the largest number of people? And, Little Fawn was leafing through their book of what they'd been kind of reflecting on and receiving recently. And they struck upon this notion of our original injury. And being that it is an original injury and impacts all of us to a certain extent, greater or lesser, I thought it would be a wonderful idea to make that the kind of focus of today's session. So you want to say more about that? It was really interesting.
Yeah, just the original wound. Like when you understand the concept of oneness, and that it doesn't, I know, like, because I do aromatherapy, I talk about single essences as opposed to a blend. And a blend, everything's in the thing, and it's like, oh, they lose their identity in there. And it doesn't mean that blends don't work for people, but it means that, like, oh, here's lavender and cypress and wintergreen and lemon, and they're now all together. But you can't really discern one. They're now a different thing.
Yeah.
Or you can layer the single essences and you'll get hits. They still get to have their individuality inside this cohesive whole, in this like conscious co-creation now that you've put together. And so that's really the oneness, is that conscious co-creation of the whole. So it's not that you lose your individual spark, your individuality. It's that you're individuated from the same. So it's like we all come from the same source, which is just love. Hate to demystify it so simply.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. You're essentially love.
Just get on board. But it doesn't take away from you. And the whole point of separating from source is to experience all of these other experiences through different lenses. And one of the visuals that I was given was, when I was a little kid, I lived not too far from here, actually, and there's a railroad track. It's a freight train that runs through. And we would go up there because, when you're kids, you're like, let's play where the trains roll by. But you would find these cool glass marbles and like all these cool things that just through the whatever of the land, the train, they were just really cool. But I remember finding a prism, and it was like this it was like flat on the bottom, and it had a little hole in it. And so I hung it in my bedroom, and I used to just love watching, on a sunny day, all of the rainbows. It would just like fractal out. But so they gave me that image. It's like, but the prism is the thing, and then a light hits it in a certain way, and then it shatters out all of its insides in this beautiful array of the rainbow colors.
Yeah. So
it's both the original source of the whole, like that white is, it's like an ultraviolet, like it contains all of the colors. So you can't discern any one color because it's all of them. So it elevates to a frequency that's not something our eyes can see. There probably is a color for it. When you're just a light being, but not with human eyes. So, but it is also that spectrum of violet,
Yeah.
indigo, blue, and everything in between them. So it's not even just those 7 rays,
Yeah.
but it's like everything in between them, or however they mix together. And
The
so
points
that's,
of contact and the
yeah,
dance in between.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's just, we were always the source, and also we are the ones that come out, and now we're layered instead of like still inside, all just, you know, in the love,
Yeah.
feeling groovy.
Yeah.
We now go, hey, this is cool, but like, what else is there? You know, what else could we maybe go and bring back to the whole? And it's like you go out and you send out these different rays, these different lenses, these different sparks, and go and explore in a new way and co-create in a new way, individuated from. And then it's like you send that back, and then the source becomes even more whole because of that.
So there's a way in which, you shine a light through a prism and it kind of refracts through, shatters through, and turns into all these, expansive colors. And the thing is that from any one point, any one little photon of light, when it turns back, it's going to see something different.
Mm-hmm.
When it looks back at source, and that image is going to be different. But ultimately, it is the same thing that you're looking at. It's just all these different vantages.
But if you have purple glasses on,
Yeah.
it's not going to look the same as the one with the orange glasses on.
Yeah. Or the red,
yeah,
or
yeah.
the blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's going to be, but there's a way in which the beauty of it is only evoked. Like if there's no separation, if there is no breaking off, there's also no turning around to recognize the beauty.
Yeah.
Because it's just
like, how do you know purple unless you go be purple?
Yeah, unless there's a purple to have been.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we were talking about this idea of there being the original source, and then from that, this kind of expanding out, shattering out, which I think might be how people experience it. Because we talked about the original wound being what
that
is it?
Separation from source.
Separation and even abandonment.
Yeah.
So the idea of like having been a part of something, and then just as part of the natural flow of things, the natural flow of being is that just as there is connection, there is separation.
Yeah.
Like none of these is more correct or right than the other.
Right. And it echoes. It's the theme that echoes, I think, most as a hard, just archetypical theme in probably every single living human's life.
Yeah.
Is that we've all felt abandoned by someone, by ourselves, by a parent, by a friend, by a partner. Like we've all experienced that. Somebody passes on. It's like you still, my dad passes away. Well, he abandoned me. But he didn't. He just transitioned. But you still feel it as that separation initially until you understand that there's a multidimensional experience happening, and there are new ways to interact with energy.
With us, with all of us, us as we are. So that when we were talking earlier, what came up was that there's this original wound, this kind of like fundamental wound of separation and abandonment, and it really piqued my interest because I was thinking about, how many people today are craving connection, right? They really want to feel like they're a part of something. And that a part of something could be, you want to feel connected in relationship with somebody else. Right. You want to feel connected to, a purposeful or meaningful life. You want to feel connected to friends, to beauty. There's a way in which like the search for this reconnection from this original injury, I think takes so many forms. And the last thing I want to make a point on is like, social media is predicated on the notion of like, oh, you're feeling lonely and disconnected? Well, let me just let you peek into everybody else's life. And doesn't that help?
But even that, how safe is that, right? Like it's almost like you're putting yourself in the source position. You're putting yourself in the observer position. I am this kind of oversoul now looking in at multiple expressions of life. that resonate with me or
Mm.
don't resonate with me, but I don't actually have to interact in any way. It's just like enough knowing that Brandon is on a run today. Good for Brandon. But I don't, it's not like I'm going, you ran today. Good for you. That made me happy. It's like we just, most of us quietly,
Yeah.
and I've even been trying to be like, well, if I feel something, I'm going to engage a little more
Mm.
and foster like a connection, even if people think it's weird. Um, if I feel something, then I'm going to say something, in that positive way. But most of us just kind of, oh, it was a day. Oh, puppies. Oh, baby bears. Oh, Brandon running. Oh, like,
I love the idea that our algorithm feeds us different things. We're like, you get baby
I
bears.
do.
I don't get baby bears.
Because my one cat, I think, is secretly a baby bear, not a cat. And
So
so
they
when I
think you have a
see
pet
baby
bear.
bears, I'm like, it's Huggy Bear.
We're going to sell her more bears.
And now because we've talked about it,
Definitely. I'm going to get ads for baby bears
so you're welcome.
for sale. Thank you. But there's this thing where, like, even the urge to pick up the phone, like, I just feel like everybody has a smartphone. 80 or 90% of people have a smartphone now. And it's like, why do you pick up social media to begin with? Like, when you open that app and click Instagram or you click Facebook or Snapchat or whatever, when you are bored and click that app, what do you hope is going to happen? And in the moment, it could be like, I feel nervous or anxious. I just don't want to be where I am. I'm going to open this app. But another could be like, man, I really wish I could feel connected. And to my mind, social media gives a facsimile of what real connection is. It gives you literally sometimes just like a photograph of what it
Yeah.
would be like to be somewhere else, or a video of a stranger you've never met before.
Yeah.
But there is a longing to connect that is like natural to us. I think this is the other thing. Sometimes people are shamed out of their wanting to connect with other people.
Well, we don't even talk on the phones that we have anymore. Like
Yeah.
before, you'd be like, hey, I wonder what Brandon's doing. Hey, you wouldn't set up an appointment or like text first to make sure and I have friends that now I'm like, I'm just calling you. If you answer, you answer. And we've agreed to like be those people, like, the Gen Xers that we are. That we are. But it's like we used to just call and reach out. And if somebody didn't answer, we didn't think anything of it other than they're not there. You know what I mean?
They're
There
not
wasn't
home right
all of
now.
a sudden this, oh my God, they know what they're not, like there's this like fear of rejection now inside of this simultaneous ease of potential connection. Because instead of it just being the phone rings and everybody gets excited, oh, the phone's ringing, let's get it. Now it's like there's 8 different ways of like why you shouldn't answer it, or who you hope it's not, or who is that. Like it's just weird now, where before it was, I think Sebastian Maniscalco, he's like an Italian comedian.
Yeah.
He does this whole thing about how when the doorbell used to ring when we were little, it was like, oh, company's here.
Yeah,
like
here?
You were so excited. And now how the doorbell rings and everybody drops to the floor. Shh, nobody move. Like
unless you're waiting for an Amazon package. Right. And then you're like,
and even then you wait for the guy to deliver it, and like
my
you don't,
deodorant's here, or whatever it is.
Yeah. So there's this fear now inside of this, like how readily available it is. There's like this newly formed fear that likely again stems from that original wound of don't get too close because everybody dies, everybody leaves, everybody, ultimately you end up by yourself. So I might as well scroll by myself, like from afar, instead of engaging and taking that risk.
And this is so, so I keep circling back because I keep assuming that there's one person here who's listening who's completely new.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm just going to keep reiterating. So, we all arise from like a fundamental oneness, or like sometimes certain traditions call it a ground of being. And, we radiate out from this single source, but then over the course of time and the course of the many manifestations that life and energy take, there is coming together and there is falling apart. There is being in community and feeling connected, and there is, being sent out of community. There's life and death, you know, death being another doorway out. Uh, but so
It's
the
all
whole of
love.
our being
Yeah.
is like it's permeated by this apparent coming and going, and like we were together and then we were apart. Um, and so it's one of our most enduring experiences, as we kind of progress through life across the span of time, is that there is life and there is death coming together and falling apart. And so for that reason, it becomes almost imprinted. It seems foundational.
Yeah, it
Like
is.
the feeling of the inevitability of the heartbreak and the separation feels foundational.
Well, and sometimes people will say, so what's the point? But
Yes,
also,
perfect.
like, but there's so much space in between. You
Mm.
can't live that space in between already at this endpoint of, and because you've chosen that endpoint to be bad, because we were talking about polarity too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it's bad or good, or it's just the experience. So if everybody dies, you don't wait to die. You know what I mean? Like, you don't go, well, I'm gonna die anyway, so what's the point?
I'm sitting this one
Yeah,
out.
like, oh, that's hard, I might get hurt. No, the point is to fill it. Like, how are you going to make use of whatever time
Mm.
you've decided to have here on this planet? How are you going to have that be a richly woven experience that you can take back to source
Mm.
and elevate the whole, so that, if you want to do it again or in a different way, or just contribute in a new way to the wholeness, like what does that look like? You're not going to have anything to offer if you don't risk. So the whole
What is
point,
there to report
yeah,
if you've
if you just
not
sat in a
engaged and
chair
waited? Yeah.
scrolling because you're afraid that connection could mean rejection. um, and it's just resonance. Like, I think when you understand that too, it's Colette Baron Reed always says, nothing that's yours can go past you. So if you're bumping up against something that's pushing you away, like, maybe turn around and see what is in a different direction, because obviously there's a lack of resonance here.
Mm.
That even if you want it, it's not a match. If it was, you'd be able to just glide right on through.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. So it's in that surrender.
I'm pointing at them because I hope they're taking notes, because these are wonderfully good points. Because
And
it's
it's all
true. It's like,
lessons learned from experience
yeah,
too. It's not like I have experienced richly in both kind of like the heartbreaking way and the heart expanding and heartfulness experience. And you just have to take it all. You just take it all, there's no, just take it all and know that, like, your experience is yours, and that you can connect because you're already connected. There's a I think it's in Lakeshalakin. I'm saying it wrong, probably 100%. But there was a guy who read the I Ching. He passed away a few years ago, Bobby Klein, and he used to close all of his readings with that, and it loosely translates to "I am another you."
Mm.
So it's like when you start to look at somebody, and there was another book that I had read. I think it's called The Last Laugh. But the guy was like seeking out answers or whatever, and he said, I'm having trouble with this girl at work. She's such a pain in the ass. She's such a this. She's such a that, or whatever. And the guy who was his teacher said, "Okay, cool. Now I want you to say every single one of those sentences again, and after each sentence, say just like me." And it was like, oh man, she's such a pain in the ass, just like me, damn it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, use that mirror to, and maybe you aren't exactly, the same in the way that this person is presenting the challenge. Sometimes it's about your reaction too. Oh, every time I'm up against this, I react this way, instead of choosing a response that could maybe wipe that mirror a little cleaner, or send it on its way so that I get a new one that reflects back.
And that's the thing here. So I think too, I'm hearing, it's natural to feel the disconnection, natural to have the kind of almost like that we've worded it as like fear, but almost like that anticipatory tension of like wanting to approach, afraid to approach because of what it could mean. that, I'm just going to approach something that's going to fall apart again. I think you're giving wonderful insight here as to the fact too of like, if you're trying to move in a certain direction and it is just not happening, that's fine.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of like, if a situation, whether it's, your work, your personal life, or relationship, there's something that you want even so badly, it just continues to repel or push back. It's like taking a different tact,
Yeah.
knowing it's not the end, it's just you're being pivoted
Yeah.
in another direction.
And it might just be that you need to experience something else in order to, like we were talking
Yeah.
about the, I have a full concept album that I've written, channeled, and I thought it was one thing, but recently I was realizing, oh, this is actually what the story is. And I'm like, why is this stalled? It's all written. I just have to produce it. But I keep bumping up, and it's like, nope, nope, nope. And there have been some lifey things too, but normally with music, that's the safe place, the happy place, right?
Sure.
But it's almost like the songs themselves were like, not yet, not yet, not yet. And there's a channeler, Lisa Holt. She says, people say, oh, why don't you post? Like, you should post more. And she's like, when they tell me. And it's kind of like
on
trusting
someone else's schedule.
When like it's not about me deciding, it's about when you're working in those realms, that those higher frequency energies, it's like you've got to be able to match it. You have to be able to resonate fully with it. And then it's like, now that I have a fuller understanding of what the material actually is, that's going to inform the energy with which it goes out into the world, which that's the energy with which it needs to go out into the world as something beyond.
This is a perfect segue too.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, the thing here, the really core essential thing here is, Jenny has this ability to attune to these different frequencies, and in doing so, to connect with and receive wisdom, insight, and instruction from these other beings. And so I would love to hear if I think you said you're already hearing some knocks.
Yeah.
For like
half of what I've said has been half me and half not
half
me
someone
already.
else's. Yeah. So it's the idea, if there is a voice or a being that wants to come through, if the question were, what is the best way, or what is a way to work with or overcome this initial wound that we as human beings feel? So what is a way to work with this abandonment and separation, deep wound that so many are experiencing?
Hello, it is lovely to be here again in this way with you. This is Guitarra. You are asking about the original separation wound. The best way that we can offer you to learn how to see it not so much as a wound of abandonment is to understand that from a source point, you are source. You are now a color. Talking earlier about the prism, you are a ray of light born of source, and therefore source. It isn't so much about a separation, but as an extension outward from. So in frequency, there is still a tether point that as you choose to live more inside the frequency of love and choose to harmonize instead of live in discord with each other, it will become clear that you are all fractals and reflections of the same. And in this way, since we do work in frequency, I am specifically and particularly one who is a harmonization frequency effector. And when you do this, it is not that you are manipulating the energy or forcing a change. You go in and you lean in to the dissonance first. You must understand what is causing this dissonance. What is the thing that is bumping too close and knocking against instead of gliding along? But you don't need to ask it to be anything other than what it is. So lean into the dissonance. And instead of trying to change that note that does not, you would say, work against the other note. Again, there is no good, there is no bad. There simply is an experience or expression of. So these two that are so close together that they're banging against each other instead of weaving together, we ask that you find another note. Find another frequency point that once it is added into this triad of sorts, creates this space between that allows full resonance of the discordant note to not only bounce off against the one that is too close, so close, but now has the choice to resonate off this other one, which is a more harmonious frequency. And in this way, you invite it to, instead of dissolve, resolve. And so now you create a new harmonious chord by honoring the truth in yourself and in each other, and creating space for an offering of that resolution instead of dissolution. Does this help?
Well, that was incredibly beautiful. I'm going to translate this to what I hope is a common experience. People often suffer from emotional difficulty, things like anxiety, depression, sadness, fear. And it sounds like one way to approach this is, rather than to avoid that embodied felt experience, rather than try to transcend and get away from it, you're offering first, you must look at, feel, and be with it. Does that sound correct?
Yes. It is not that we want you to fall into a pit of insert whichever lower frequency the experience is currently, whether it is anxiety, despair, grief. But we would ask you to, it's not even so much that you need to embody this fully, but you need to give it a seat at the table that is as valid as your joy. Your pain is as valid as your joy. These opposite frequency points, these poles, you want to bring them closer together, for they are not actually that far apart in frequency. It is just they're octaves. It's not that they are different, they are octaves of a core frequency. And so you do need to lean in without shame and without fear, and trusting that there is no losing yourself in what is already yourself. And you give the emotion itself, that note, that frequency itself, a chance to actually be heard. The fear around it will dissolve. The fear around it is your idea of what it is, or what it means to be, or how it is shameful to have. But if you simply have anxiety, and at the same time understand that the pole that is on the opposite end, the higher octave, is peace, then it is very easy to travel between these 2 points when you understand that the anxiety is simply a lower frequency of peace. And so you can create that chord, that third tone, somewhere in between there. It doesn't even matter. It can be closer to anxiety, it can be closer to peace. If you're in a moment of a lower frequency shadow energy, it may be easier for you to find a point closer to, and then allow them both to amplify and resonate towards peace. And you'll find that the anxiety now has a place to go through and resolve out into peace. And if that is through breathing, through mantra, through the simple acceptance, through simply saying, I do not feel okay. You are okay. In most cases, there's a very simple question you can ask, which is, am I in fact being chased by a tiger? If you are not, then you are safe. If the demons are on the inside, they are ones of self-creation. And so as you created them, you hold the power to tame them, to get to know them, to release their power over you, for you are the architect, you are the creator. And so you don't need to necessarily push it away, feel bad about experiencing it. You just need to give it a through in order to resolve into truth, which is that in that moment, you are actually okay. It is also okay to not be okay. And so you take the time it takes to elevate yourself to that point of peace, which is already on the same pole as anxiety. Does this make sense to you?
Guitarra, it makes perfect, profound, and beautiful sense. Thank you so much for that explanation. From start to finish, I found that really enriching and a wonderful illustration. Thank you for the education.
Of course. I don't always have what feels like the right words. Most of our communication is telepathic or through frequency. And so I like to check in and be certain that the words we are choosing are the most resonant and most positively affecting ones.
No, thank you so much for the explanation. I think it was vivid in its depiction, and I think you offered many examples so that different people with different understanding could at least find one example within that would be illustrative or connect to them. I also appreciate that you offer a practical intervention, several in fact, that someone could use in a hard moment when they're not feeling great, to recognize that, but also to release that, move back into a higher frequency. That's fantastic.
Good. I'm happy to do so.
Would it be okay, Guitarra, if Little Fawn was allowed to invite maybe one other in to give their perspective on how to deal with this original wound of seeming separation, seeming abandonment?
Certainly.
Thank you, Guitarra.
Thank you. I am Alyssia. I am from the time of Atlantis. I am also an aspect of Little Fawn. My experiences are also a shared soul experience with her.
Thank you for introducing yourself, Alyssia. This afternoon, Little Fawn and I are making a recording, and the topic we're exploring is that of the original wound, as we've termed it, and it is that experience of separation that happens across the span of time, across the experience of lifetimes, and even within one's life. There are periods of coming together and connecting with others, and of those relationships ending. I'm wondering what insight, instruction, or advice you have on how to work with that feeling of woundedness, that feeling of separation.
The first thing that I would offer up to you is to always know your why and always shine full light of illumination on what it is you are doing and for what purpose. Oftentimes, the abandonment issue can create isolation chambers inside your own heart space, which will block it off, and then you end up acting and moving through the mind only, which is missing a vital component, which is that knowing, in fact, of that original wound, which provides an empathy imprint, a compassion blueprint that will better inform your actions in this new time, which I can see very clearly, we can see very clearly, is an echoing of older times. The abandonment pattern and template is the oldest one. It is the original wound from source, and it has played out in not just small ways, as a leaving of a parent, or a death of a loved one, or a breakup, or people just drifting apart, but it plays out in the destruction of entire civilizations. And we would ask that, much like what Guitarra has said, you need to open fully from the heart and allow yourself to experience this pain in a way that is free flowing to free you. When you keep it locked up inside you, it is a ticking time bomb that will inform choices once again through a point of fear, and you will lift into these more analytical mind frames, and you will not care consequence, because even in all of this availability and offering of connection that you do have now, you are not truly connecting in the way that allows you to inform a decision based on the greater good of the whole. So you need to remember that you are part of a whole, that you chose in co-creation with the source that you come from, that you are, to extend outward in order to have a new experience that can help co-create universes and civilizations throughout time and space, that can operate on these higher frequencies of love and of harmony and peace without needing to take from one in order that the other can have. In this way, there is no connection. There's only destruction. And so you need to know the why so that you can begin to co-create here and now, which is what you are all meant to do, through connection, through community, and an understanding that the brave thing to do is to open up into your own softness and connect without needing the validation of that connection. If you feel a connection, then revel in it. If you feel inclined to reach out to connect, reach out and connect, and know that whether or not that connection is reciprocated, you have done what is needed to elevate the whole simply in that offering. You do not need validation or even reciprocation in that moment. You only need to continue reaching out. It is the initial goal. It is the original goal. All we are all doing is reaching out from source, fractalizing, and then fractalizing and fractalizing again. We are all each other. We are all different colors of the same. And in order to truly heal that wound, we just need to, as you said earlier, turn around and look back at where we came from. And in order to do that, you must go inside of yourself and understand that no one can leave you. No one can abandon you. You can't abandon anyone. We can only continue to experience and to evolve and to grow separately, but also together simultaneously, for these are the colors that create the new palette for the new earth that is being born now. And this is a do-over. It's a second chance. So we would ask that you just really go in and know your why. Understand. Do not just robotically follow. Do not just mindlessly slip into routine for the sake of routine's sake. Everything you do, from the toothpaste that you choose, from when you brush your teeth, from the order of operations, from waking to what you do during your day, to how you wind yourself down to rejuvenate at night through your dream time, be conscious of it all. It all has meaning only in that you give it meaning, and the meaning that you give it is what ripples out into the world and affects the whole in a shadow or in a spark of brilliant light. And so in order to radiate, you must understand that you are already whole. There is no separation, only an extension of.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
For today, we are going to end the connective part of the session. But I want to thank you both again, Alyssia and Guitarra, for your wisdom and your availability.
Of course. It was my pleasure to be heard in this way. I have only just reconnected with Little Fawn in the sense that I am another her and she is another me. And so I am honored to have been brought forth in this way and at this time, for what a time it is. It's always fun when somebody new comes through for the first time. The first time.
You okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting with Alyssia. There was a big pointing to the respect for an individual's self-determination and autonomy, which I found just interesting is not a big enough word, but there was this acknowledgement of, you as the individual make the choice and know that your choice has meaning, and then that meaning that you give has this kind of interdependent effect of like it's going to impact everything.
Yeah.
And kind of like, well, the phrase that comes to mind is don't lead a slouch's life. Meaning, don't just think, you're just kind of moseying along and, well, if I'm not hurting anybody and I'm not doing anything bad, that's okay.
Well, and also I know just in working with her in a different way, it is questioning, not to be a scooch, right? But questioning so that you were talking about the one teacher person for the thing who didn't really know what he was talking
Yeah,
about. Like he had
yeah.
taken all the stuff, but it hadn't integrated in a way. And you have to understand to integrate. So it's not about getting from point A to point B in the fastest, most efficient way possible, but you have to really digest and understand and integrate so that you have a full understanding of what it is you're contributing to, so that you can ask yourself, is this who I am and something that I want to be contributing to, or do I need to make a new choice?
Yeah, that continuous inquiry of like why.
Yeah.
She said twice, you know, you have to ask why.
Yeah.
You know, why am I doing this? Why am I making this choice right now? Understanding.
Well, and
the impact.
From her perspective, she was doing what she thought was good, only to discover in this slow unfurling that all wasn't as it was presented to be. But at that point, it was too late.
Yeah.
Like the damage had already been done, and she had been a part of it. Yeah. Because she didn't ask questions when those anomalies started to show up. That blind trust in like anything, you know. Yeah. You have to understand like the resonance and ask like why.
That's so interesting. It is so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, she was that was a lot of energy. Yeah. Yeah. Guitarra is very soft, and she was soft too, but there was like a, from the time we sat down, she was right here. So there was like an insistence with her.
Is there anything else you want to share from your perspective on that experience, whether your own or your experience with Guitarra or your experience with Alyssia?
I would just offer that you get to know these other parts of yourself. A lot of times we'll think, oh, it's just my imagination. Or I won't say this out loud because people will think I'm crazy. Or, you know, I'm not a 6-year-old with an imaginary friend. But a lot of times there's this, I think Carl Jung used to call it the active imagination. Yeah. And it's how we manifest. You know, it's why people do vision boards. I don't have it, but I see it. And this is how I envision it, and it plays a role in creating the energy and opening up the pathway to manifest it. But in these other aspects, just knowing that you are, yes, you are source, you are the whole, but understanding that you are not just a single initial outreach. There's a single, and then there's others. Like each time you experience, there's a yearning for. Now that I'm in this, what about this? What about this? What about this? So like every decision we make, oh, I went to New York for school. I didn't stay, but I stayed. You know what I mean? Every choice we make, the choice we didn't make still has its play out. You know what I mean? So the soul is experiencing all of these things simultaneously. It's just that the one that we're focusing on is the one that takes center stage for the present moment, you know, the now moment. Yeah. But it's get to know your other nows and you know, not simultaneously. You know, like you don't want to, there are people who have, I think, a lot of mental, and I'm not a doctor, but a lot of these mental dis-eases that come out is there's a multi-dimensional experience happening that it's overwhelming, and so it fractalizes like in this single human brain, and it can't hold it, so
it overwhelms.
Like, yeah, it like overrides what it is. And there is a program that's running now that is it's the front burner. It's the one that we're all meant to be co-creating on. So it's not about, well, I want to be here, or I should be there, or what about this? It's just about accessing them from a light body standpoint in your meditative states, in your dream time states, and gathering, like I'll do future progressions we talked about. Yeah. Not to see what happens, but to talk to her. You know what I mean? About bridging a gap, or, you know, giving a point of focus. So it's like learning from these other experiences and weaving them in to you in this like beautiful, co-creatively harmonious tapestry that informs and helps better shape this whole, this here and now. Yeah. Instead of like splitting. You don't want to split off from your now in like this third dimensional way. You know what I mean?
I could
If that
see.
makes sense. I feel like it makes no sense, but
So the image that's coming to mind is, you're physically present here, but kind of trying to be in all these different places at once, and just like the diffusion of energy that would result in, and the
right.
diffusion of intention that would result in.
And we need to be here now. That's the point.
There is a point,
Grounded
yeah.
here now. But you can tap into these energies to better inform your now.
See, and this is so important because there is a subset of the population, I'm probably part of it. But when you hear there's a front burner, you're like, does that mean that there's a back burner? I want to go look at the back burner. And there's this idea of, if I could reach that point in time, can I do other things?
Here.
But it's just that idea of using this as a tool, maybe to find discernment. Because a lot of times in life, there is seemingly no direction, or
right.
There's a bunch of decision trees of like A or B, A or B. And so I could definitely see the benefit. And if you're able to, in a light body sense, through meditation or dream, tap into this other aspect, this further out version of yourself, and say, what are we supposed to do here? How am I supposed to manage this?
Especially since it's not linear. Linear time and linear thinking, that's third dimensional. That's just like what we created. Like, again, we created these limitations
we
to
did
see.
Make that up, didn't
we made it up. It's not.
You did make that up.
So a lot of this stuff, it's not about, well, I need to go to the future. Let me go to I remember the first time I realized, I was like, how could I have a lifetime in the 20s as a, I'm seeing myself as like a 20-something-year-old woman, but then how can I also be a soldier in the Second War? Like, there was there were these kind of like that cognitive dissonance where I'm like, these two things can't be real because they happen in different times. And if I'm 20 here, well, by 1940, I wouldn't still be 20. But yes, I would, because it's all happening at the same time. That fractalization it's like a moment. It's instantaneous.
A single moment.
Yeah. So that's why that power of now and all of that is so important, because we're all just living a single moment. And it's not so much that it's like over and over, like a Groundhog's Day, but it can only be the single moment.
So that was to great comedic effect. Give Bill Murray credit where credit is due.
Sometimes it feels like that.
Yeah, right. I'm sure that for a lot of people, myself included,
we've all had those moments.
But this is great. So this whole video session was about, you piqued my interest with the original wound. And, my thinking original, well, I bet you a lot of people are impacted by the original wound.
Yeah.
So we kind of defined what that was, being separation or a feeling of abandonment. We talked about how, in actuality, everything is of source. And Guitarra even pointed out, she's like, the better way to describe it is not as separation, but as extension.
Yeah.
There's no removal from. Yeah. There is, the appearance of space and distance, but it's extending. It's not that anything was gained or lost, or,
And that alone shatters duality.
Yeah.
The original duality point. You know what I mean? Like, there's divine, there's God, and there's us. And greater than, less than, black, white, light, dark. But you're an extension of always and only. So duality is like not a thing. Like,
it's not a thing.
There can be polarities.
And it's not a thing.
There can be polarities, right? It's both and then it's like we're all somewhere on the spectrum of, coming and going, essentially, like you said.
But I appreciated Guitarra too. She said, when you feel like you're in a lower state, right? It's sadness, it's anxiety, depression. This idea of how to work with that, because I think so much. Part of the difficulty is that when there is a wealth of information, sometimes all we do is take in information without. Sometimes all we do is take in information without any sense of how to work with it in actuality.
Yeah.
So like cognitively we feel a little better, but our life circumstance isn't that positively
Right.
affected.
And if you don't like lean in a little bit, and again, I would never say like, hey, be depressed, y'all.
Yeah.
It's a good time. But if you don't lean in a way that takes away the shame and needing to hide in it, and needing where you can just be like, today's the day. I understand it's a lower octave frequency. It's where I am. I'm going to try and bring in things that will invite it to harmonize and lift, because it is on the same pole as joy.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's when you go look at the baby bears. Full circle.
But that's wonderful. That's wonderful. The ability to experiment, finding wellness through experimentation with these practices. So the people that watch, that enjoy it, and that think, hey, maybe I will try that. The next time that I'm feeling down, can I recognize that there is some part of me right now that is okay?
Yeah.
Right. And then can I lift the frequency just by knowing that? And
epiphanies come from winging it.
Yeah.
Like where your brain's not actually involved. You know what I mean? And then in that moment of epiphany, then you can go, oh, this is something I want to know more about, or learn more about, or have a conscious practice of. And you go down your little rabbit holes. But most epiphanies come from an in the moment choice that's the best choice you can make under the circumstances. And you go, whoa, oh, I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I said, like, is this gonna kill me? And then like somebody we were watching said, you just ask yourself, is this gonna kill me in the next 2 minutes? Like physically kill me? And if it's not, like, take a breath.
Yeah.
And like, that's when you know it's safe to lean in.
I love Guitarra. She was like, you ask yourself, am I being attacked by a bear right now? Am I being attacked by a tiger right now? No. Okay.
Yeah. Like I don't actually have to, I'm not in, your body doesn't know the difference. Like fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of those things. Like it came from those more archaic times where it's like, oh yes, I am being chased by an actual saber-toothed tiger. But now you're not. It's 2024. The likelihood of it is very, very slim. So it's in your head. So when you understand that, you can go, it doesn't make it less real. Like I'm not diminishing the very real feeling, but like your body doesn't discern between excitement and fear. It's the same kind of response in there. So it's just, excitement, you know what that's like. That's great. So if fear feels the same in your body, then well, it's my body can handle this because it loves excitement. You know what I mean? Like there's this kind of, you can kind of have these little weird little narratives with yourself of, okay, like I'm not going to die in the next 2 minutes. So what's going on here? Okay. And you don't even have to cognitively like understand it. Like, oh, I bumped into this person and this triggered this. Like some of that comes later if you need it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just about dealing with, like she was saying, the chord. Like you hit that chord that's like a little too, oh, these two things are a little too close. Let me add this note.
Yeah.
And now they sound okay. And in doing that, you invite this one to resolve into something else.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. Yeah. Really beautifully put. So, okay.
Because we could talk for a long time.
We could talk for a long time. And so just to recap, I thought this was so interesting. The original wound, insights on how to recognize maybe the falseness of the narrative around that. And then when you are feeling disconnected and upset, we got practical advice and insights for how to work with that. Anything else you want to close us out with this afternoon?
No, except sometimes it's for me, like as I'm sort of listening, and then when I get stuff, I won't always remember what I say, but bits will stick that are super resonant for me, where when it comes through and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, even for me, I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way before.
Yeah.
And then trying to catch it. But since you filmed it, I can watch it later.
Such a big net for catching insights now. All right. Well, this has been a second session, Little Fawn, assisted by Brandon. And I know I look forward to the next session.
Yeah, me too. I
hope this is of benefit to you out there. If you have any questions or feedback, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Jenny, Little Fawn is always so wonderful at answering questions. And till next time.